We're good, yes. Spring has finally arrived, so we're kind of smiling, but I have to say, we're all looking across the pond to the USA because that's the big story of the day.
Bloody oath. We'll get to that in a second, but let's talk also about how, surprise, surprise, you know, the spy balloon that it took forever to blow out of the sky for Joe Biden, and then he started blowing up, amateur balloon enthusiasts. It was, of course, a Chinese balloon that was collecting intel. Surprise, surprise, now we know. Yet he let it float around for the best part of a week. And remember, he gave the issue to shoot it down on a Wednesday, but they only took fire on a Saturday.
Yeah, it makes him look incompetent. It would appear that he's acted against not just the national interest of America, but the interest of the West. And yes, as you say, the Chinese have flown their balloon all over military installations right across America. I mean, this is the worst, most incompetent president America has ever had. And as that country goes down the tubes, my fear is that actually the West is going that way as well.
Yeah, here's a bit of how they explained it on Sky UK.
They say that the Chinese were able to control the balloon, that it took multiple passes over some of those sensitive sites, gathering intelligence via these electronic signals, either from sort of weapons themselves or from personnel down on the base, and also that it actually had a self-destruct mechanism on it.
It's real Mission Impossible stuff, right?
Well, pretty extraordinary scenes in Manhattan yesterday as a former US president is charged with 34 so-called felonies. This has never happened before, and with very good reason. Yet many former presidents have been in trouble. Richard Nixon over Watergate, criminal activity, people went to prison. Nixon was about to be served with a criminal notice, resigned as president, and then was pardoned. What about Bill Clinton? Well, he lied under oath about the Monica Lewinsky affair, and yet he too was pardoned. But Trump apparently should have declared the payments to Stormy Daniels, or his people should, as part of election expenditure. What happens if things go wrong there? Well, back in 2008, Barack Obama. Well, his misreporting was so bad that the campaign received a fine of $375,000. And what about Hillary Clinton? When they hid the fact, they paid money to a former British agent called Chris Steele to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. He produced a file that was absolutely littered full of lies. None of it was proven. And yet, of course, her campaign received a fine. Yet what does Trump receive? 34 charges. Now, this is highly political. Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor in New York, said when he was running to be elected that he would get Trump. The Americans no longer have a judiciary that is in any way independent or, frankly, in which the country can trust. And that is very, very serious. This is an attempt to put him out of the race for the 2024 presidential election. They are terrified of his patriotic agenda. They don't want a president that will close down borders. They certainly don't want a president that gets tough on China. You know, we had the Mueller inquiry, we had the Russia hoax, the 2 impeachments. It's never, ever stopped. Their attempt to put him out of the game has never, ever stopped. This isn't Donald Trump on trial. This is due process that's on trial. This is the American judicial system that's on trial. It's the American Constitution that's on trial. Actually, it's Western civilization's values that are on trial. Ever since King John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, you know, we've lived in a society where, whilst we may not agree with all of the decisions made, we do actually assume there is a degree of independence in our judiciary. If you cannot trust the rule of law, if you cannot trust mainstream media, if you cannot trust mainstream politicians, if faith breaks down in the whole system, well then, I'm afraid, you're left with the alternative. And that alternative is very, very ugly. I wonder, part of me wonders, is that what the Democrats are actually trying to provoke? Because what they're doing is without justification. I genuinely believe everything we stand for in the Western world is on trial. And I think it is absolutely vital, whether you like this man or not, absolutely vital that he wins through all of this. The Democrats hate him, and they hate him with an irrationality, which means they're prepared to tear down all of those structures America has built over centuries. The stakes here simply could not be higher. And when I even listened to Radio 4's Today programme, which often makes me very upset, even there, mainstream commentators and broadcasters and those that work for the BBC were making the point, this is all overtly political. I think we're looking at America, frankly, as a former world #1 power that is now turning in on itself. And through history, actually, empires and civilizations have collapsed, normally not because of the threat from without, but the threat from within. And if America falls, tell you what, the whole of Western civilization falls. So I am with Trump all the way. And I urge you, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his politics or not, what matters here is respect for the rule of law. What matters here is that people can actually trust the systems under which they live. The alternative is too horrid to contemplate.
Do we actually believe in democracy? It was interesting. Biden yesterday, at a sort of rather mumbling press conference, sort of hinted that what was going on was to protect the Constitution and to stop Donald Trump from running again. It was the nearest thing I've seen or heard to collusion at every level. And this is about free and fair democracy. It is about a judiciary that people can have confidence in. And if you look at where America's going, it's in a very, very perilous position. So whatever Trump's flaws may be, I think we're approaching, over the course of this next 18 months, a moment at which America either stays as the dominant, albeit, China's growing too, but America either stays as a dominant global superpower, or it literally begins to break apart. And the old left, Paul, you and I would have disagreed with the old left on taxation policy, on spending, but you know what? We'd have gone for a pint with them. We would have respected them as human beings. The new left are so convinced, they have their own moral certitude that theirs is the only way, that they're attempting to destroy and crush everything in its path. And it's funny, because their supporters, they chant physically or online, and they call anyone that disagrees with them a fascist or a neo-Nazi, and yet that's exactly how they're behaving.